when I feel like there's that challenge, whatever that challenging thing is that rocks my world a bit, that makes me want to have the equivalent of run up to the mountains, what I think that really is saying to me is where I think my life is together, it's an illusion. I have nothing, everything is awful. That's also not true. We don't learn when everything is comfortable, we learn when it's uncomfortable. So this is the difference between I'm going to ignore what's uncomfortable for me versus I'm going to ignore really isn't relevant, or I'm looking at that and saying, yeah, I don't think that's either true or helpful. And that's a tough thing to filter out. But then how do we embrace the discomfort? Because in any part of our life, that's where we learn, is getting in that discomfort phase. Welcome to the Sober Friends podcast. Here's a place if you're sober curious, or if you have some sobriety and you need that meeting in a pocket, good place to be. My name is Matt J. Over there is Steve. What's going on, Steve?
Not much, Matt. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. I think I'm okay. I started doing a little research on what this topic could be by going to Reddit and the Alcoholics Anonymous subreddit. It's not a subreddit run by AA itself. It's just a discussion place. And I jump in there from time to time to see what people are saying. And somebody who was 11 days sober mentioned about they're sober, but I don't know about this higher power thing. And there were a whole bunch of responses from, you got to read We Agnostics, to, no, We Agnostics is really conversion therapy. And I settled into take what you like and leave the rest. That was what somebody was writing about. But the real question I have is take what you like a doorway to recovery, or is a loophole out of it? I want you to start there, Steve.
Sure. One thing you said that, I love the way you put it is, how did you say? We Agnostics is conversion therapy?
Yes. That kind of hit me hard.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Certainly don't want to go down that rabbit hole on this podcast, so that's not what we're talking about. But it made me think once you said it, because it's one of those things I've never heard. Listen, it's a touchy situation of take what you want, leave the rest, right? It does give certain people sort of license to disregard a lot of the important parts of the program. Mm-hmm. And I think it can be a doorway out of recovery and out of the 12 steps for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think there's any question like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. How many times? I'm not going to do that. But I don't think it's meant in that fashion, right? I think it's meant in the fashion that I think a lot of that does revolve around your higher power. And I think that's a big part of it is like, okay, although when you really dig into the big book, I'm not sure that's the case. Bill does say sort of take what works for you. And but I think most of that when you hear it today revolves around the higher power. Like, hey, if you don't like that, just don't worry about it. But it's tricky. It's tricky because I've seen very few people come into this program that I know, and they may be out there, and sort of half-ass this program, right? And really have success. And by success, I don't mean not drinking. I mean having a sober life that is well-rounded and good and fulfilling and fruitful and all those things, which again to me doesn't include happiness, because happiness comes and goes with life events and stuff like that. But you can still have a really good life. So to me, I could never tell a newcomer, yeah, let's skip over step 4 because you don't want to do step 4 and 5, right? And we'll go right to 6 and 7. So, somehow we're going to try to guess what your character defects are, and we're not going to work on those. Or we're going to skip over 8 and 9. You're not going to go out and make amends to people. Now, I do think there are people, including myself, that maybe don't do they don't do that 10 step where you do stuff in the morning, right? That's a little bit of take what you want. Like that, to me, I don't do that regularly. People do it religiously. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot to dig out from underneath that. And it can be tricky, but it can bring you in, I guess is what I'm saying. Like it can bring certain people in who are struggling with all of the concepts of it. But I do think it could also give you a loophole to not work on the program and work on yourself.
Right. I do. That's really where I guess we skipped to the end here. Not my point, but we skipped to the end of it's kind of the opinions that this phrase is there for. It's not for what would be considered the facts. It's about the opinions.
Yeah.
And to me, the foundation of an AA program is what you see in the book, in the written text. If it's talked about not being in the written text, then that's what you can take or leave. And I bring this up because I know that things that I struggle with in a meeting sometime is the grizzled old-timer who has certain opinions, and some of them may challenge me and some of them not, or I hear some opinions that they don't make sense or they might be harmful to me. And I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not going to take those opinions. Tell me a little bit how that lands.
No, that's fine. That lands great with me because I do think that as someone who is very opinionated, and no, really, and
I know you are.
And puts my opinion out there in meetings, and not to anything around meetings. Like I don't typically put my opinions on outside stuff into my AA meetings because that's not where they belong. But I am very opinionated on other stuff. I had one of my cousins, say that because I'm certainly on my social media stuff. I'm very opinionated on current events, and my cousin years ago we were out at some family function. She says, "Man, you have some opinions, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And I'm not going to hide behind them. So I do think that opinions are, that steps back to that program before personalities, right? I'm not saying that right. But we have to leave those opinions and those personalities at the door. We have to let people have, we have to understand that we're a mishmash of people, right? And when we get into a recovery, we're there. There is a sole purpose to recovery, right? And that sole purpose for me is the most important thing. The most important thing for me is when I'm working my program, when I'm in that environment, and even when I'm out of it sometimes nowadays, because I do try to apply these principles to all my affairs.
Yep.
Is to focus on what's best for my sobriety. Because what I have learned the hard way, and I mean it, I've learned the hard way, through disastrous actions and reactions of me to events and circumstances around me, that when I don't have my sobriety, when I don't have my serenity, my whole world crumbles. Right? My whole world crumbles. I talk about it all the time. I've been sober. I've been sober 15 plus years. I haven't drank for better part of 29 out of the last 30 years. I haven't drank alcohol. And every once in a while, it still happens to me. And I'm open with it. I'm open with it with my wife. I want to pack up my car and drive to the mountains and live in a cabin all by myself. And I have a great life. But every once in a while, that thought still hits me that I just want to listen. I want to get away from it. I want to
Right.
get away from whatever's uncomfortable, whatever's causing me distress, whatever's making me pissed off. I just want to get away from it. But my program tells me that's not the way I handle it, right? My program tells me I need to be able to handle those feelings. I need to be able to not react to them. And that's why I have to always focus on that. So it's really, really important for me to just understand what I need. And, when I go into a meeting, I need sobriety. I need to hear from other people. My meeting's been, I've been not feeling well. My whole meeting schedule has been messed up for the last 10 days, right? I've missed my Friday night men's meeting twice, 2 in a row. I don't miss that 2 in a row. And here's the thing, I'm aware, even my wife said to me, my wife is aware these days that that's not good for me. Mm-hmm. I need to sort of be there and touch base. So, we talked a little bit about it. I went out last night really quickly to a speaker meeting up at, the local club up here called Pathfinders. It's, still not feeling great, but it's a big space. I didn't feel like I would be endangering anybody, although I'm not sure I'm that contagious anymore. But I just felt like I needed that touch to my program.
Yep.
Right? I just needed that touch to it. And luckily, I go to a lot of meetings, so I walk in there, and I know 4 or 5 people there who I've known for years. So it's always important to me. I've sort of lost my train of thought here, but to just focus on what's important to me, which is my sobriety.
You may have lost your train of thought, but what you said was good. And there's a lot to unpack, and it does tie into the topic. Because what I heard there is when I'm challenged, I want to run up to the mountains. And I can identify with that. When I feel like there's that challenge, whatever that challenging thing is that rocks my world a bit, that makes me want to have the equivalent of run up to the mountains.
Right.
What I think that really is saying to me is where I think my life is together, it's an illusion. That's the moment that tells me everything I thought I had is an illusion. I have nothing. Everything is awful. That's also not true.
Yeah.
We don't learn when everything is comfortable. We learn when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between I'm going to ignore what's uncomfortable for me versus I'm going to ignore what really isn't relevant, or I'm looking at that and saying, yeah, I don't think that's either true or helpful. And that's a tough thing to filter out. But then how do we embrace the discomfort? Because in any part of our life, that's where we learn, is getting in that discomfort phase.
No question about it. I talk about my meetings, and I go to a Wednesday meeting, which is a mixed group, which has lots of really, really good long-term women's female sobriety. And I learned so much from these women. I love it because it's such a different perspective, and it's just a different voice to me, right? It's just a different voice. It's not the old boy locker room stuff. And there's a woman there who talks about exactly that, sitting with that stuff that's uncomfortable. She talks about how she's had to learn, and it's a woman with 30-something years, right? And she talks about how she has to learn to sit with that and figure that out. And she talks about how even after 30 plus years of sobriety and doing a program and all the stuff we do, and how she has sponsees, she still has to work with that. She still has to work with all of those feelings. That was it for me. That was the game for me. I could not sit with my emotions, right? My emotions were either explosive or non-existent. I had no ability to sit with something that was uncomfortable and painful and try to learn from it, right? So back in my drinking days, when I got there, I drank to get rid of it, right? I drank to dull it and get rid of it. In my dry drunk days, I was explosive and angry and pissed off, right? I mean, that's those are the phases. And then in a sobriety stage where I've worked with the steps, where I work a program, I can sit mostly, and I can still get a little bit hot-headed, but nothing it's nothing like it was before. Like, I can still be sharp with my tongue, I guess. I can still say inconsiderate things. But it's nothing like I've done before. So I can look at those things and realize that there is a lesson in sitting with my discomfort and sitting with my pain. Listen, I share about my stuff, right? I'm still caring for my wife. This has been going on for a long time. I tell my wife all the time, I'm tired, honey. I'm tired emotionally, right? I'm just tired of, I don't want to, I tell her all the time, like, I don't want to cook, like, I don't want to do any of this stuff anymore. I've been doing it for so long. Like, I would just love to, for one night, just to have somebody put a meal in front of me. I mean it. Like, that's simple little thing. A nice, healthy meal. I thought about this last night because I was like, what am I going to eat? And I was like, wouldn't it be nice to have just a little protein, a little vegetable, just put in front of me, tasty. And that, it was something that would have driven me nuts. Like, that would have put me on a path to explosiveness. And now I can work through that thought. I can talk about it. I talk about it here. I talk about it at my meetings so that I don't hit that explosive part, right? It diffuses that point for me. So that's all. I can only do that because of this program. That's it. Other people had those skills. They learned those skills. They were born with those skills. I don't know where they got them from. To me, I found them in AA. I found them in the fellowship, right? That's where I found them. Not in the program. Those are skills I found in the fellowship, by looking at other people, by watching other people, by talking to other people, right? That's where I found those things, so that I could figure out how to deal with some of that stuff. So it's excuse me. It's just a wonderful thing that I can do that today. Right? I mean, it really is. It's a wonderful thing that I could do that. And I know in my heart, even though there are days where I want to jump in my car and go to the mountains, I know in my heart and even in my head that I love my life. And I know that I would never do that because I love my kids. I've always said my kids still live in the same state I do. So my son has 3 kids. Like, my daughter lives 20 minutes away. I'm not leaving my kids. I always told my wife, like, when my kids were in college, and we talked about if we wanted to move when we retired, and I'm like, if my kids don't leave the state, I'm not leaving the state. Plain and simple. Right. I'm not going, like, warm, nothing. I'm staying with my kids. That's the most important thing. So I know I'm not going to do that. It's more of a feeling, and I know I'm not going to take action. But it is interesting that I still get that feeling, and I love the way you put it. Is that it's this that I have this illusion that my life isn't as good as I think it is, right? And
yes.
And I know I'm not alone. And that's the other thing about this is that I hear this when I go to meetings from other people. Right? I hear it from you on this podcast, and I hear it when I go to meetings, that people feel the same way. And I go, okay, I'm not that crazy. I might be crazy, but I'm not that crazy because other people are feeling the same way.
No, you're pretty normal and pretty average. We all want to be the star of our own story, and we're not. And this is a real higher power moment for me, is when I learned that it's okay to be average, that you don't have to strive to be the best. What it means to me is not necessarily just be a slacker, but just be good with who you are. And who you are, if that is not exceptional, is also okay because you're here. And that's a lot of take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah.
I could take it one way, or I could take I'm going to make this my own, and that is I'm going to be comfortable with me, because what caused me to drink is to strive to be exceptional so I felt normal,
right? As
opposed to just feel normal wherever you are, even if that is you're in a tough place, and then don't compare to other people. To me, that I'm losing my articulation here, but it was an important lesson. I learned a lot about how to function in life through going to meetings as well. A lot of this was going through the cookbook of the steps and following that recipe, but it was also connecting with other people and communicating with them, of asking for help. Or sometimes it's not, I pick up the phone and say, boy, I'm really struggling with my sobriety. It is, you know what, I'm kind of struggling with this thought process around my garbage disposal, and I think something is loose in the electrical box there where the on and off switch is. Would you get an electrician, or is this something I can do myself?
Right.
And it's those things that I didn't have the thought process of how do I work through that. And talking to somebody helps me, okay, now I know how to navigate this, or at least I'm pointed in the right direction. I might get, I don't believe in electricity. All right, so I'm gonna leave that right there on the table. And that's an extreme example. But I really thought about this idea of take what you like and leave the rest. When I would take everything everybody said in a meeting literally of, well, I'm doing that, or I don't feel like I'm doing that, or I'm paranoid, they're criticizing me without saying it.
Right.
And after a while, there was some stuff I heard that I didn't like. I didn't think it was productive. It wasn't relevant to me. And I had a breakthrough of, all right, I'm going to ignore that person. I'm not going to get worked up with them. A lot of times this is that one person who is verbose and never shuts up or says the same thing over and over and over again. I'm not going to let that ruin my meeting. I'm just going to ignore it and we'll move on. That's a lot of where this topic works for me. I'm not going to work the steps.
Yeah. If you go to enough meetings, you experience that stuff. Anybody who's going to 12-step meetings, AA meetings, for the most part, if you go to enough of them, you're seeing that person that plays, and it varies, right? If you go to different meetings, I went to a club meeting last night. You see a lot of that stuff at club meetings.
Yes.
More than other places. Like I have a Friday night meeting that there's a wide variety of guys in there, right? All economic, different places, political places, religious places. I'm telling you something. All of that stuff at my Friday night meeting, which is a solid, there's probably 30 to 35 guys who go to that meeting regularly. 20 to 25 of us show up every week, give or take. And all of that stuff is left at the door, right? That meeting does a great job of leaving and not having that person typically. Now, that doesn't mean that person won't show up from somewhere else and spout off.
Yes.
But I think we've all, that comes into this tolerance thing. We've all learned this tolerance of being able to allow people to do what they need to do. One of the things that I have learned to do is that I've learned when somebody starts sharing and it starts irritating me because they're talking about whatever, I start to think like maybe this person just needs to say that. Like maybe this person has nobody else to say it to. So let them say it here. It's a safe space. Let them say it here. And yeah, they'll carry on. Yeah, we all know that. And again, certain people at certain meetings, it happens. We all have that person right at the end of the meeting where they go, hey, any burning desires? And that person puts up their hand with 3 minutes to go and talks for 7 minutes, right? We have those people. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is like I went to a meeting last night. Like I said, I haven't been. I went to a speaker meeting last night, and the speaker was an older gentleman, 83 years old, and he had a great story. But he talked about one thing you said is that he grew up with a dominating father who expected excellence. And he said, I wasn't bad. I wasn't. He goes, I played sports. He goes, I was never good. I was average. He goes, at my academic stuff, I wasn't great. I was average. And he goes, well, my dad was always about, if I brought home a B, it's supposed to be A. That typical story, right? Dad was pushing him. And he felt horrible in life because he was average. And he had such a great story. I was really happy I went Guy was from East Granby and up in John's area. But I think about that, and like you said, we all want to be exceptional. Not all of us, but a lot of us, like, that's it. And I've always felt the same way, that average wasn't good enough for me. Mm-hmm. And that caused me a lot of problems, and caused me a lot of problems in relationships and stuff like that, because as I tried to get above average, right, I discarded a lot of people along the way because I thought they were getting in my way. So average is good, right? We always say in AA now, boring is good.
Yes.
A boring life is good, because it means that I'm not doing risky stuff. So,
yeah. I just had an epiphany here around, I got to be exceptional. And I think this is comparing to other people. I think that thought came into my head because everybody else is exceptional at something. Maybe narrow, maybe wide, but everybody's exceptional at something. I'm exceptional at nothing. There's something wrong with me. I can see it in meetings. Everybody else is exceptional at either everything in their program or something in particular. I'm exceptional at nothing. I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah.
That's the mindset. And that is incorrect thinking, because you may not be, it's okay not to be exceptional at something, or you're dismissing what you are exceptional at. You just don't see it, or you don't value that. That's where, I don't know, reverse inventory. Maybe it is something that we'll say step 14, because we all know what step 13 is. Step 14 is take an inventory of the things that you might be great at that you dismiss and tell it to another person.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think about how I view myself, much like you view yourself. And I'm the same way. Like, I played sports. I wasn't even average at sports. I loved playing sports and doing stuff. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even average. I was not all that good. But I played, and I did okay. But I always think that I not always. Part of me always thinks, there's a portion of me that always thinks I'm way worse than I am. And yeah. I need some feedback once in a while, and I do get it once in a while. I don't go searching for compliments. I don't go searching like, "Hey, Steve, you're such a good guy." Matter of fact, I do the opposite in meetings. I tell them, people say, "Oh, Steve, you're such a nice guy." I'm like, "Yeah, you spend an hour with me in the meeting, right? Oh, right? Mm-hmm. You see me once a week or twice a week for an hour and a half, and I'm a nice guy in that hour and a half." But once in a while, people will give me some feedback like you're talking about. Honest, really sincere feedback. And you can tell when it's honest and sincere. It's not asked for. And there's a few people who do that for me. And it's just nice to hear that. Like, yeah, and being average is okay. And maybe I am exceptional and I can't see it, right? That's the other thing. Maybe I can't see that I'm exceptional in certain ways. And I think that's probably fair for a lot of things, because we're in the midst of it. We're in the grind. I'm in the grind of my own life.
Yes.
Right? I'm in the grind of my own life. So maybe I'm exceptional at something, but, then all of a sudden I got to turn around and cook a meal that I don't feel like cooking. So that exceptional, characteristic or whatever it is I might have gets lost. So it's a struggle. But, the other thing I would say is I don't search for that stuff today. I really do search for average. I search for boring. I don't search for exciting. I don't search for exciting. I've done a lot of stuff that's been fun. I have a few things that I still like to do that are fun for me. But I don't need a lot of excitement. I don't need a lot of experiences. Like my whole thing today is I I do think about relationships, especially with my family, my kids, my grandkids. And after that, everything else is like gravy. Everything else is gravy. And so, I don't know. It's always good to be back here. We didn't tape last week. Like I said, that was the start of my cold. So it's great to be back here and dig into some of the stuff. It
was good to take the week off because I could have put something up by myself. And I always think everybody's going to leave us if the episode is not there.
Right.
But I also thought I needed a mental break too.
Yeah.
You physically needed the break because you said, well, we could tape at 8. And I was at the supermarket and I'm like, I'm not going to put out a podcast to run to the microphone just to put something out there. That this is the world saying it's not the worst thing in the world if the podcast sits for a week, because very, very rarely take breaks.
Yeah, we do.
But sometimes it's like I need that mental break of not plugging in or thinking of a topic or sitting for 30 minutes, which is hard, of like, okay, what do I say next? Sometimes it's like, you know what? It's okay. And if the audience leaves, that's okay too.
You said something that helped me in the text when we were texting back and forth. You said, remember, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun, right? We do it. It's serious. It's a serious hobby for us. But it is. And once you said that, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, let's skip it for the week. So
there are people like Mitzi who contribute every single month and give a little bit of money because it's valuable to her. That is amazing. It is beyond amazing. But this is not Pivot. This is not the Joe Rogan Experience, and that we're costing advertisers tens of millions of dollars for a week off. That's not how it works. And I had to say it out loud for me to remember.
Yeah,
I would love to hear from you. Take what you leave. Take what you like and leave the rest. What does it mean for you? How you find us? SoberFriendsPod.com at SoberFriendsPod. Lots to think about here, Steve.
Yeah,
my head hurts.
Certainly is, Matt.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.
See ya.